Hey, good morning, everyone. Gary here. It's 4 o'clock in the morning here. I still haven't. I've been retired 4 months now. I'm still getting my sleep pattern down. Some days I wake up at 2. Some days I wake up at 3. Some days I get to sleep in and I wake up at 7. Most of the days I wake up at 2. And I just get up. I say, fuck it. I'm not going to bother tossing and turning. I'm in bed every night by 8:30 anyway, unless there's a football game on. I'm 65 years old, I'm going to bed earlier these days. And I don't want to be staying up till 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night anymore. Screw that. I'm still getting used to being retired. Anyway, so speaking of that, subject today is people asking me what do I do when I'm retired? So every day, well, not every day, about 3 days a week, I go over to this memory care facility where my father is, and I sit with him and visit with the old guy. He's 89 years old, and he's in a memory care facility because he's starting to lose his marbles. He's very forgetful. He's got dementia, and so I hang out with the old man and just talk about whatever comes up. And he always asks me every time I'm in there. It's like he just saw me the day before, and I was like, he'll say, I never see you, Gary. I never see you. Well, Dad, I was just here yesterday. But I don't remind him of that anymore because I don't want to remind him that he's losing his mind. He knows he's forgetful, but I don't want to just abbreviate that and make him feel bad that he's losing his mind. So I say, yeah, I try to get in here when I see you, Pops. 3 days a week I go over there and hang out with him. But he always asks me the same questions over and over again. And I give him that because he's losing his mind. He doesn't remember. He just asked me the same question 3 minutes ago. How long have you been retired now? My father retired 20 years ago from his company. He had his own insurance company. He was a big wig. He ran the show. But he retired 20 years ago. And then when my mom died 9 years ago, everything went downhill with him. He didn't know what to do because she was everything, All he had to do was show up, She was the organizer, the planner. She went to parties, dinner parties, and all he had to do was put on some nice clothes and show up. Now that she was gone, everything had changed, and that his life just went to hell in a handbasket because she was gone. So that's the breakdown of him. But he asks me over and over and over again. So what do you do now that you're retired? I think he's looking for things to do, but he's just looking to make conversation. Dad, I do whatever I want when I want to do it. Oh, okay. Well, you're happy with that. I said, yeah, Dad. He goes, do you ever miss work? I say, fuck and no. And he starts to laugh. I said, because he knew what I did for work. He knew I had a high stress, physically demanding job. He knew it. I said, Dad, I don't ever want to work again. I don't ever want to work at anything ever again. And he said to me yesterday when I was visiting with him, he said, so let me ask you this, Gary. He goes, do you think you'll ever go back to the job you were on part-time and work part-time to stay busy? And I said, fuck and no, Dad. That's the worst. That's my nightmare. I wake up screaming in a sweat sometimes that I had to go back to work. No, never again. Mind you, I don't have a bad taste in my mouth. The company I worked for was a great company. They treated me right. Good company. Great company blanket. Had great health benefits. Had a great pension plan. Gave me full-time hours. Guaranteed me work. Gave me... the company had a union. They worked with the company. We got yearly raises. They weren't a lot, but it was a raise. That was a good company to work for. But now that I'm not there anymore, I'm just happy not to be working. Which brings me up to my next subject. Every now and then I'll run into people in my neighborhood or friends that I haven't seen in a while, and they'll see me, they'll say, hey, how you like retired? I said, oh, I love being retired. What do you do? What do you do with your free time? And I always give them the same postage stamp answer. Whatever I want to do. And they laugh it off. And that's good enough for them. That's good enough for them. Every now and then I'll run into somebody who's real inquisitive that is also retired. And it's generally someone on my street, because I have a lot of friends on my street. I know I've been in this condo community now, I think 10 years, almost 10, well, a little bit over 10 years. So I'm social. So I know a lot of people here. And a lot of people live here are already retired as well. Pardon me, some of the people here are still working, but a lot of them are retired. And I hear from a lot of people that are retired. So what do you do with your days? How do you fill your days up? I said, I'm just still trying to get into the groove of being retired. That's my answer. I'm still trying to get into the groove of being retired. I don't have to give them details. They're not looking for details. But every now and then I get someone who's really inquisitive. I ran into a lady at the store not the store I worked at, but a store, the same company I work for, that I do my grocery shopping at. I ran into her 3 days ago while I was shopping. And she's a corporate raider. She was at the store level for a long time, and then she moved up to corporate office. And I ran into her. I hadn't seen her in about 5 years, maybe longer. And she goes, "Wow, hey, Gary, how you doing? You look good." And I said, "Hey, so do you. You look great. How you been?" And we were just shooting the shit. She goes, "I heard you retired." I said, "Yeah, I finally did. It got out." She goes, "How you like it?" I said, "Fucking love it. Fucking love it." And she knew what I did for work. She knew it was physically demanding. And she was real inquisitive. "Well, so what do you do? So what do you do in your free time?" I think she's getting close to retiring herself, so she was just curious. But see, she had the benefit of being married, and she had grandkids, and so she had things to keep her busy. I'm a single guy. I've never been married, don't have a wife. I don't have a full-time girlfriend. So it's just me, a bachelor, which I like a lot. But so she was real inquisitive. Kept on asking me over and over again, "What do you do? What do you do? What do you do?" I'm like, well, I said, "Hey, look, whatever I want to do, I'm just glad I don't have to work anymore." And so she was busy walking the store. I said, "Well, it's good to see you again." And she walked her way, and I went back to my way, and I had to go to the produce department. I had to do some shopping. Well, I'll explain to people who are just new to this channel, people that don't know me real well yet. It's named, as it's called I'm the Butcher Boy. Is the reason, because I was a meat cutter. My job was physically demanding. It would take me, I would get up a good hour and a half, 2 hours before I had to be at work. I had to be at work most days at 5 a.m. It took 25 to 30 minutes for me to drive to work every morning. So I got up a good hour and a half before, or an hour and a half, 2 hours before I had to be there. Because I had to eat breakfast. I had to get a couple cups of coffee in me. And then I had to put layers on. I had to put a couple t-shirts on, and then my work shirt over the top of that. I had to put on some long underwear, and then my pants over that. I had to put on thermal socks, and then my regular socks. We're getting layered up, and everyone I work with wore layers because they were in cold conditions. Now the guys that worked out front, like on the floor, filling the floor, they didn't have to get layered up. But the guys like myself that had to cut meat all day, or not the whole day, but a good portion of the day, we had to layer up. And so when I get to work, then I had a hoodie that I had hung up in the back hall. I put my hoodie on, zipped it up, and then put the hoodie over. Then I had usually a skull cap that covered my ears. I put that on, then I put the hoodie over that. I had to get warm because the meat room where we cut our meat was 37, 38 degrees. And then the meat locker where we had to go back there was just above freezing. And that's where we kept all of our meat. Had to be in the cold conditions, had to be cold back there. And our company was good about that. We were good about that, keeping our shit cold, man. Safety for the customers. I mean, that's one thing our company was good at, keeping stuff cold, man, keeping the shit cold. So I'm in cold conditions every day. I'm like being outside in the winter. But the only difference was there was no breeze and there was no snow coming down, but it was cold as tits. So I walk in there in the meat room. I go out the floor and make a list of things I need to cut come back off the meat floor, which is warm out there, come back into cold conditions. Now I got my meat list of things I got to cut. If I don't do that, then my boss has to come back and he has to make a meat cutting list and he gives me a list. And then he's freezing his tits off, so he leaves the meat room while I cut. That's one thing my boss didn't like. He'd come back there and he'd be like, here's your meat list, and then he'd take off and leave. He'd come back and wrap the meat line off for me every now and then, but most of the time he was not in the meat room. So now I have my meat cutting list. I had my hat on, my hoodie. I'm all bundled up like an Eskimo. Then I had to go in the meat locker where it was colder with my list and open up boxes with my box cutter and pull out hunks of meat, primals. Primals is just a piece of meat that's wrapped up in an airtight flavor seal package. And then that can weigh anywhere from 10 to 15 pound piece of meat. Put that on the meat wagon. And the meat wagon is the cart that rolled the meat in and out of the meat locker to the meat room. I had to pile that up with a bunch of meat I had to cut. And beef boxes that weighed anywhere from 30 pounds to 90 pounds. Sometimes I had to get a box that was a 30-pound box, but on top of that was a 90-pound box. I had to pick the 90-pound box up, physically pick the fucker up, move it over, twisting my back, and then bending down in the cold, and cutting the fucking box open with a box cutter, taking that shit out, put it on the meat wagon, put the fucking box back on top of that fucking box. Every day. You're in the meat locker for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, digging through boxes of shit to get your meat. We swore all the time. This fucking shit, fucking that fucking shit, fuck. Yeah, we did. That's the only way we could release from being cold every day. Cold. It's cold as tits in here. Fuck, come on, get out of the meat cooler already. I gotta get this meat cut. Hurry up. Oh, yeah. So, you're out of the meat locker finally. Now you're into the meat room where it's still cold, but not as cold as that meat locker. And then you're moving. You know, you got the meat saw. It's a bandsaw. It's powered by electricity. It's a bandsaw. You turn it on, it makes a high whining noise, and the blades are sharp, and you're zipping your meat through the meat saw. You got to concentrate. You don't want to lose your finger. I've seen guys lose their fingers by hurrying. Excuse me. I worked with a guy years ago. He was being a cowboy. He was being a showboat. And I wasn't a meat manager yet. I was an assistant meat manager. I wasn't an assistant meat manager yet. I was still in training. And this guy was a showboat. This was years ago, 20 plus years ago. And so he's cutting on the meat bandsaw. There's a boneless saw that cuts through boneless meat, and then there's a bone-in saw that cuts through bones. He was on the boneless saw. And I was standing in front of him and he was looking at me, and I was on the other side of the bandsaw, and he's on the bandsaw cutting the meat, and he's zipping it through. And you're supposed to look down and catch the meat as it comes through the saw. It's only logical. A dumbass can figure it out. Don't look away from the band when it's zipping through on a power saw. Well, he wanted to be a showboat. He thought his shit didn't his stink. And so he looks up and he's looking at me and cutting. He loses the tip of his finger. In living color, I saw the tip of his finger lodged in the bandsaw, and blood was spewing out of his finger because he wanted to be a showboat. Needless to say, the company fired his ass for doing it. Imagine that. Then, of course, he had to break the saw down, and you had to sterilize all the parts. You had to take the band that he cut himself on, throw that in the garbage can. You had to take every bit of everything around that saw and hose it down with hot water, hose it down with soap, detergent water, let it sit and soak in, and then spray it down with hot water, and then sanitize it and not use it for the rest of the day and let it air dry. Because this guy wanted to be a showboat. Because we were all about safety. My company was great about safety. He cut himself on the bandsaw. That saw's got to be broke down. The blade's got to be thrown in the garbage can. All the parts got to be sanitized and chlorine cleaner. Yeah. We didn't fuck around. When shit was contaminated, we cleaned that shit. Oh, my company was good about that. It had to. That's cross-contamination. There was no wiggle room for that shit. So everything had to be sanitized every night, every day after you cut meat. You had to soak your knives in bleach water. They had to be soaked in bleach water and then rinsed and then sanitized and then put into a bucket. They had to be clean every day. We were all about cleanliness. Had to be. It had to be. Everything. So let's go back to the front story. I mean, I've seen a lot of guys cut their hands over the years. 36 years with the same company, I saw so many guys cut their fingers. That was the only one time I saw them do it on a saw. But I saw a lot of guys nick themselves with knives. And same procedure. Let's say you nick your finger by accident while you're cutting meat. By accident, not deliberately, not being a showboat, but by accident. You nip your finger on the block, on the block. The block being the meat table where you're cutting your meat. All the meat that's sitting there on there has to be thrown out. Cross-contamination. So whatever's on the block that you cut your finger on, it's got to be thrown in the garbage can. Weighed up for loss and thrown in the garbage can because it's cross-contamination. Then you got to take the block off, put it in the sink, and clean it with chlorinated water. Rinse it off and sanitize it. Oh, yeah. My company didn't fuck around when it came to cleanliness and cross-contamination. That's one thing I can give a shout out to the company I work for. They were all about cleanliness, all about sanitation. Anyway, so that's what I did. Cut meat for a living in cold conditions. And so when people say to me, oh yeah, when a meat truck rolled in, when people don't know what a meat truck is, it's a flat. It's a big old wooden flat with almost 1,000 pounds, 1,200 pounds of meat stacked on it. We have to physically stack that down in a cold cooler and a meat locker. That's where it was, where they rolled it in there at nighttime. We had to physically stack that down. Think about that. You don't need to go to a gym to stay in shape if you're a meat cutter. That's your gym. But you're in cold conditions. And people don't get that. So the people listening to this program, you see what I did for a living. You understand what I did was physically demanding work in cold conditions. Like working in Siberia. So when people say to me, so you think you're ever going to go back to work? I'm like, fuck no. Man, no. What did you do for work? I was a meat cutter. That's what I did for work. I was a meat cutter. And most people don't know. They're like, oh, really? Oh, yeah. What was that all about? How was that? The minute they think meat cutter, they don't have meat. They think when they think meat cutter, they think when they were a kid and they used to go to the butcher shop with their mom or their grandma. And they saw the guy behind the counter cutting meat on a wooden block in room temperature. Back before there was anything called sanitation. Back in the 40s and the 50s. Hey, your friendly neighborhood butcher. Cutting meat on a wooden block in warm temperature. Those days are over. They've been over since I've been with the company. 36 years. You work in cold conditions, goddammit. So, and when I started explaining to people, like I'd be at a driveway drinking party on my street, when I started explaining to people what I did for work and the conditions I worked in, and the physical labor of that job, their mouths drop open. They're like, are you serious? That's what you have to do? Yeah. Is that why you just wear a sweatshirt when it's cold outside? Because a lot of people see me shoveling my driveway in the wintertime, and all I'm wearing is a pullover sweatshirt and a hat. Because I'm acclimated to the cold. I worked in it for 36 years. So I don't feel cold like a lot of people feel. A lot of guys I work with can probably attest to that. We don't feel cold like everyone else feels because we're in it every day. Slaving away, cutting meat. So anyway, but that's what I did. And so you're cutting your meat. You package it on a tray. You send it down a line. The line being a conveyor belt that goes down to the very end. And then there's a guy down there that usually wraps it for you and prices it. Puts it in a meat spinner. Runs it out on the floor and puts it on the floor. But there's not a guy out there wrapping for you. I have to finish what I'm doing cutting and go back there and wrap it myself. It's work. So now that I'm retired, I'm telling you this right now. Now that I'm retired, I worked let me backtrack. My very last day on the job, I worked with a guy. He was our seafood manager. Great guy. Super nice guy. It was a big help for me a lot of times because I would get freaked out by the amount of work I had to do. And he'd always say, Gary, do one task at a time. Do that first. And then when you're done with that, do that. He was my voice of reason. He was, without him bringing me down and cooling me off on days where I was stressed out, I don't know what I would have done. Because we were always short-handed. We didn't have enough people. When I got hired 36 years ago with that company I worked for, there was four meat cutters in the back, 2 meat wrappers, 2 people on the service counter. They had a head meat cutter, an assistant head meat cutter. They had 3 or 4 clerks on the floor filling the case. And now, the year I retired, this past year, and I think 10 years before that, it was down to like 1 meat cutter versus 4 when I got hired. 1 meat cutter versus 4 when I was hired. 1 head meat cutter, 1 assistant head meat cutter. 1 clerk running seafood and meat on the seafood and meat counter. 1 clerk, not 2, 1. Nobody on the sales floor filling the floor. That was the guy cutting the meat and his boss. See what I'm saying? So times changed, and it wasn't just my company, it was every company in America. Even the competition. Nobody had help anymore. Why? Why, you ask me? Because it's work. It's physically demanding work. They don't see the carrot at the end. It's a good job. These kids today, they graduate high school, they don't want to work. They want to sit in their mommy's basement and play video games. Being a meat cutter is hard work, but the reward is really, it's there. And we got paid good money. I was making $50,000 a year to do my work. Was it a lot of money? For me, it was. Was I rich? No. Was I comfortable? Yeah. I was very comfortable making that kind of money. Did I work for it? Yeah. They got their pound of flesh out of me. But what I'm saying is, being a meat cutter is a trade. It's better than going to college and getting a 4-year fucking degree and coming out with no job and looking for a job. Oh, I got a degree in marketing or business management. What do I do to get that? You could be on the fucking unemployment line for years trying to find a job in that. But if people are out there listening to this and have kids that are teenagers or teenagers watching this or kids and their guys or gals in their 20s that don't have a job, get a job at a grocery store. Say, I want to work in the meat department. I want to learn how to cut meat. They're hiring. And it's good money. Right out of the box, you're going to make $50,000 a year. Right out of the box. Maybe $40,000 a year. Maybe $40,000 a year right out of the box. And then you work your way up. Make $50,000 a year. Or go higher. It's a sponge, man. It's a big company. Companies everywhere that are just dying to get people that want to work. It's work. You don't have a pen in your top pocket. And you're not working in a corporate office. It's a union shop. You have great benefits. You get paid vacations. You work towards a pension. I'm making more money retired than when I worked. That's how good my pension is. With Social Security and my pension, I'm making more money not working. Fucking love it. I upgraded. If I had to go back to work tomorrow, I would take a pay cut. So I'm just saying, it's good, honest work. Come home, and these are guys and gals out there that do what I do listening to this. They're like, yeah, Gary's right. People are still working. You know what they do when they get off the clock? So women out there, if you're dating somebody, a dude that's a meat cutter, give him some slack. When he comes home from work and he wants to take his clothes off, take a hot shower, get a beer in him or something, and just sit on the couch and vegetate, maybe pass out for 2 hours because they're tired. Because they work their ass off all fucking day. They still got it in them to party, but geez, give them a minute or two to relax, for Christ's sakes. We were tired at the end of the day. Even in my 20s, there'd be days when, there was days when I was in my late 20s cutting meat all day. Come home physically exhausted after my 20s. When you have all the energy in the world in your 20s. Come home exhausted, physically exhausted. So give us a break. Go easy on your man if he's got a full-time job as a meat cutter. Understand that. You know, it's not like he's got a pen in his pocket, walking around a corporate office all day, sucking ass. No, he works for his money. So guys, people out there watching this that have kids that are going off to college, yeah, I would push them to get a trade. If you're not going to be a meat cutter, send them to a trade school, learn HVAC, heating and ventilation and air conditioning, or make them a plumber or make an electrician. So straight out of the box, after you go to school there, you get a job as an apprentice somewhere, doing plumbing or electrical or HVAC. You learn how to do that for a company, and then you go off on your own or you stay with the company. You're making $75,000, $80,000 a year right now. Oh, it's dirty work. Oh, it's dirty work. I don't want to do that. Why? There's a kid across the street from me where I live. I think he's like 25, 26 years old. He lives with his dad because his dad and his mom are divorced. He lives with his dad, and he's working for a local electrician's company here in Cincinnati. They're paying him $32 an hour as a full-time worker. $32 an hour? He's making bank. He drives around the Range Rover. He's got a nice tricked-out car. Guy makes some bank. $32 an hour, and he's working for a company. And then he gets to work weekends if he wants for time and a half. They say, hey, his name is Stan. Stan, do you want to work on Saturdays? Sure. Time and a half. Kid's smart, living with his dad. He can get his own apartment, but his old man says, nah, stay with me. Make some money, son. Make some money. Make enough money you can put a down payment on a house. I think in another year or so he's going to put a down payment on a condo in this area because he likes this area. Buy a condo. Pay cash for it with that kind of money. So I'm just saying, a trade. I know I'm running my mouth. I'm going on longer than this video should go, but I just wanted to get this out there. For people that are not sure what they want to do with life as far as a job, get a job as a trade. I had a good job as a meat cutter. I had a great company I worked for. I had a great company. They treated me right. I took care of them. They took care of me. You know, get a job as a grocery guy. Work in the grocery field. You know, it's a good job. Good security. Good benefits. I got 6 weeks paid vacation before I retired. Can you imagine that? People don't get that kind of shit anymore. You work up with it. You get those vacations as you work up with the company. Get a job as a tradesman, doing something with your hands. That's all I'm saying. There's jobs out there, people. Video games don't pay any money. Living in your mommy's basement doesn't pay any money. All right, I'm going to get off the soapbox. Okay. I almost fell jumping off that soapbox. I apologize. I run my mouth. But I run my mouth a lot in the morning. So I'm just waking up. Anyway, I'm going to get off this thing and talk about something later. But, hey, it's good hanging out with you guys again in the morning. I enjoy it. Thanks for stopping by and looking at my crazy content. Y'all have a fantastic weekend. Take care of yourselves. Peace out.